Hi. I've been collecting video games for a long time now, and people have asked me on my Twitch channel and in real life, to show off my actual game collection. I show finds on my Instagram and share with people, and sometimes people go out game hunting with me or see me pick up these big things, but they don't know what it actually goes towards. So, what I thought I would do is I don't normally do YouTube or anything like that, but I made an exception and I decided I'd record a short video, just sort of walk through my game room, highlight some things that I find interesting that maybe you'll find interesting, and give you a sense of where we're at. Today, it's January 2019. I've been collecting off and on for about 20 years, and so this, to me, is just a fun hobby, and I like doing it and finding new stuff, and it keeps surprising me. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this, and we'll just go through things from the beginning. So we're going to start, we'll just do like a little passing tour of the entire room so you can get a sense of how big it is. This is just a small bedroom in my home. I live in a townhouse, so not a really big place, just a modest home. This is maybe, I'm guessing, I think it's like 12 by 8 perhaps. Nothing too special, just a modest home that I've had. It's my first home. And you can see I have a lot of stuff in this room. It's kind of a little bit full. I don't really have, don't have tons of space for everything. And honestly, who knows, I might move at some point. You can even see here with like the little entertainment center, I don't really have the right furniture for this, so that's something I'd like to improve this year. Get a new setup for my consoles. But we'll go through the actual collection now, and people usually want to see the games. So up here you can see I actually do really like the amiibos. I think even though they're kind of useless, I think some of them are neat to look at. In fact, I think a lot of the newer ones, you can see there's a lot more detail to them. And I don't really do toys, but since I love Nintendo so much, I figured I would get some of them a shot for the collection. Here, this was a neat find I found last year. It's a Popeye, I think it's like a Game & Watch thing. I found it for $5. It was super cool. I don't think it's working quite right, but it's still cool to have, and I really like those sorts of things. And I don't really seek out too much gaming memorabilia, but when I find it cheap, I like to have it for the game room. You can see this is my Killer Instinct box Super Nintendo. I found that not too long ago. That was really cool. Here is just where I'm at with Xbox 360 these days. You can see a pretty decent amount of games, but not a huge lot. I would say, though, right now in 2019, Xbox 360, you can get games super cheap. I mean, these are the types of things that often show up in thrift stores, and honestly, these days, I'm paying, $1, $2, $3 for games, and you're finding some good deals. Like right here, EDF 2017 I found at the thrift store, and I think I paid $1.50 for it or something. It was super cheap, and so I picked it up. Just last week, I got, I think, Burnout for $2 and things like that, and people are just getting rid of them. It's like anything. What happens with these consoles sometimes, like the previous generation, I think people just fall off it real quick, especially with common stuff like Xbox 360, but people forget how good of a console Xbox is. So, I mean, right now, I'm buying that stuff. I'm trying to add to the collection. Sort of following that vein, I have a ton of PS2 stuff. Again, it seemed like I think it's maybe picking up a little bit now, but like the last few years, PS2 is just this system that people were just getting rid of, I guess because it wasn't HD, and it was so common. But you can see there's some really cool games on the system, and they can be found really cheap most of the time. And that's sort of how I built my collection. Some of these things I've had since they came out, but like in the last few years, you just find so many things. Again, the types of things you might find in a thrift store. That's the trance vibrator for Rez. I found that at a Second and Charles in Delaware. That was kind of a neat find. I didn't expect to find that one day. It's really one of the things about collecting is like you just sort of find things. Sometimes you're not necessarily looking for them. More PS2 games. Anything really neat here? I have down here some of my favorite games by Sweet Getting Games. I really love that series. Onimusha, really cool stuff. Rez. I have a lot of the general good games, but I mean, the PS2 library is so big that honestly, you really can't go wrong. There's just so much good stuff. I would say if you're starting to collect now, it's a really good system to start with because you'll have a lot of options. You'll find a lot of cool stuff really for not very much money. Here's original Xbox, OG Xbox. Another system that you just find the games super cheap, and there's some really cool stuff. I mean, I bought a big box of Xbox games a couple years ago for like $40, and it was just random assortment of stuff. Guy just wanted to get rid of them, and that's where I found. I think that's where I got grabbed by the Ghoulies, and what else? What's the really? I have a few pretty hard to find Xbox games. I can't remember what it's called. Stubbs. Yeah, I found Stubbs the Zombie there, so I paid like 50 cents. I know that's a pretty hard to find game. But again, like, it's a great system, and it actually ran some games HD, and the games play really well, especially some of I really like some of the arcadey sports games of the era, and Burnout, of course, is a really big favorite. This Outrun 2 is right here, and this is an inexpensive game. You can find this for just a couple dollars. It's dust. Just a couple dollars most of the time, and I would really recommend that. But I actually picked up this a couple years ago, really cheap. I found it, it wasn't really valued that much. Sorry for the glare. It's Outrun 2 Coast to Coast, and I only paid like $15 for it. Apparently, it's gone up quite a bit. I'm not going to show it off right now, but I also have Steel Battalion, the whole controller and everything. That's put away. It's just such a big thing. It's hard to display. Here's another little amiibo thing and my Persona dancing. I like to keep the big Wii U boxes. You can see I put the Midna amiibo back in it. And I stack these guys up too. I do like some of the amiibos, especially like this 8-bit Mario. I just think it's a really cool one. These cases here for some of my NES games and SNES games, you'll see. These are like these custom aftermarket cases. So, what's a good one to show off? So, Dragon Warrior 4, for example. So, I don't have the box manual for this, but you can see there's like a little paper thing, nice plastic. It keeps it contained, especially if you have games where you don't have the box, but you do have like the manual and the cart, like, Zelda. I am trying to get more boxes for my games recently. Sorry for the shaking camera. But anyway, there's this guy in Washington, D.C. who was selling off. He was getting rid of his games collection, but all he had was the plastic boxes, and so for his custom cases. So I bought all of them from him. And in fact, in one of these closets here, I've got I would say a stack of, it's got to be 100 cases of either games I don't have or spare cases. So I'm going to start using them more because, as you'll see in a minute, I still have a lot of loose carts that I could box up. So we have more. We'll go back to the other stuff in a second, but we've got some more of those custom box games. I have some pretty good games in my collection. I mean, for NES, I have over 600 unique carts. Some pretty heavy hitters. Nothing. I don't have some of the most expensive ones. I think my most expensive games probably are I have DuckTales 2. We've got, Mega Man 5 is a pretty hard to find one. Ninja Gaiden 3. I got Metal Storm. I think I would say the most valuable NES games are probably in the maybe $200 area. I'm reluctant to really spend that kind of money. Same for SNES. I just am not willing. I want some of these hard to find games, and if I find them, cheap or in the wild, I'd certainly keep them. I don't really resell them, but at the same time, I'm really unwilling to spend too much on an individual card. It's just a philosophy I have. So I think here's a good one, Demon's Crest. I really like this game. Final Fantasy 3. This is my favorite game of all time. Here's my TurboGrafx stuff. So here's some quote-unquote complete games. They're not really complete because the TurboGrafx had this weird cardboard box on the outside. I don't have any that have that. We have a few Turbo CD games, but then we also have the PC Engine stuff, PC Engine CD. So these are some of the best things in my collection. I really love this. This is Dracula X on the PC Engine CD. I got it a while ago. I will never get rid of it. What else do we have? Oh, here's Winds of Thunder or Lords of Thunder if it was an American game. Really good shoot 'em up. A lot of cue cards. You can see I have a lot of Japanese TurboGrafx games too. Some of them are cheaper, but some of them are just ones I got. Here's something weird. I found some Saturn manuals at a comic book shop for $1. And like Sega Ages. I don't have that game, but that's a pretty hard to find manual, I imagine, so it's good to have. Here's some loose TurboGrafx stuff. I'm not going to go through it too much. Up here, we've got, here's some N64 custom cases. Not too much for the N64. Again, sorry about the glare. It's just hard. I want to get light on it, so. Here's some NES complete in box stuff. I have a modest complete in box NES collection, maybe about 30-some complete in box games. I've been working on it more, but I don't, again, with like boxes, I try and get them on a bargain and not spend too much. Like at MagFest, I got this box. It was $15, but then I got the guy to bundle it with a bunch of other things, so I guess it was less than $15. And that's something I'm willing to pay to complete something off. You know, generally, if you're going to build a collection that's big and you don't want to get, bankrupt, you have to be willing to look for deals, and so I negotiate that stuff down. Lolo 3 box, that was a really good one to find. That's expensive, but I definitely didn't pay the retail price for it. Very modest Dreamcast collection right now. I'm actually kind of ashamed about it. I really need more Dreamcast games, so if anybody has ones they're looking to trade, you could hit me up. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, really love this game. Really love JoJo. Ora ora ora. Some complete in box SNES and N64 stuff. Most of the N64 complete in box stuff I got from one lady in Annapolis. She was selling off her kids' N64. It was like the system and all these games, a lot of which were complete in box. And I think she was like, "Oh, $100," and I ended up driving. She was actually on the other side of the Bay Bridge, so I actually went to the Eastern Shore to get it, but it was totally worth it. And yeah, it was like the Banjo games, Diddy Kong, Mario, and these games were in like pristine condition too. So that was super good. And then there were some loose things too. That's really cool. I found that at the flea market. It's We're in Time is Carmen Sandiego. That's complete. So that has the encyclopedia with it. That's not really that expensive. I just think it's cool. A couple in-box Super Famicom games. This is Mario and Wario. A friend brought that back from Japan. I have a mouse somewhere. That's a fun game, actually. This I found, weirdly enough, at a record store and I didn't pay $59.95 for it, but I found it at a record store in Ellicott City before an unfortunate flood happened there, and the dude was just like, "Yeah, I have these import games. Like, how much do you have $10 for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take it." We got some collector's edition 3DS games. These are loose Dreamcast games, so these two I have the manuals for, but these two I just have loose. These are some hard to find, more pricier games, more coveted games. I would really like to complete them, but honestly, I'm actually pretty happy with these custom pieces of art and stuff like that. I like having the game, of course. I like being able to use it, so I'm not going to trifle too much. If I get a good deal and it's loose, like Gigawing, of course, is very expensive, complete, but I got a good deal because it was loose. This is just tons. It's hard to do. Just tons of manuals for different games. Some of which I have already and complete or whatever, but anyway, I hold on to them because eventually you complete these things in box sometimes. So up here, just a few collector's editions. I don't go too much for collector's editions, but sometimes I make exceptions. The Bravely games, I really enjoyed both of these games. I really am happy that I have those. Danganronpa, this game's not so good, but Ultra Despair Girls, but I got the box set anyway. This game, Danganronpa, this is Danganronpa 2. Excellent game. And the first game, also amazing. If you like visual novels, crazy stories, and things like that, I really don't want to say much because I don't want to spoil it, but I would really recommend Danganronpa. Up here, I found this this cassette sort of case at a thrift store, and I was like, yeah, maybe you could fit a Genesis game in this thing. It fits little cassettes, so why not a Genesis? And then I got home, and It was like $5. I was like, oh, do I want to waste the money? And then I have to throw it out, but it fit perfectly. So really cool. I have a pretty big Genesis collection these days, and I've got some hard to find games. This isn't real, this Musha, that's a repro. I don't really buy repros, but I have that one. We have Castlevania Bloodlines. I think I have, I have Contra Hardcore somewhere, don't I? I don't know where that is. Anyway, it's somewhere. Maybe I have it complete. I don't know where it is. But, you know, some other really good Genesis games, Gyara's, some great shooters. For some reason, last couple years, just found lots and lots of Sega Genesis games out in the wild. People just selling off collections. There's Splatterhouse 3. Where's that? Right here. That was a good one to find. I found this loose at a flea market for like $5. That was awesome. Yeah, but just super easy to find. I think really Genesis is overlooked by a lot of people. It's a great system, and I don't understand why people just dismiss it so quickly, and they look at the Super Nintendo and they just assume it's better. I mean, to me, the Genesis it's a different library, but in terms of quality, there's a lot of quality games. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, you know? We make fun of it, but it's actually a fun game, in my opinion, so anyway. So, in addition, I say I find all these Genesis games. I have a pretty big complete in box Genesis collection right now. You can see much bit more complete in box Genesis games than NES or SNES or N64, probably more than all of them combined. And I don't know what to credit that to. Just a couple years ago, I happened to find a guy. He had a big box of complete games, good stuff too, like. Not easy to find games necessarily, just complete, and he wanted $100, and I couldn't give him the money fast enough. So that was really cool. And yeah, some favorites. Again, I like Outrun a lot. If I can get this out, it's a really great game. I've actually run into Outrun Complete Box twice and picked them up both times. Here's Shining Force 2. I found this at Second and Charles. They, for some reason, they were selling this, and I really should put a plastic box around this. Bet I could use an NES one. They were selling it for like $20, like less than the loose price for the complete box game. Same with Shadowrun. It was just like one day I went there, and Rice Star. I just went there, and they had all these complete box games, and they were selling them ridiculously cheap. I had no idea why, but hey, sometimes you don't ask questions. Sometimes you just go for stuff. Here's Splatterhouse 2. I bought this from a local guy who recognized me at a buffet. That's a complete box game. I was really happy he thought of me when he was trying to get rid of it. I paid him a lot, but he gave me a good deal, so that was fair. More Genesis stuff. Actually have some import things. You can see there's a few repros here. Zero Wing is not a legit game. The Master System games, like good stuff. Like this is a pretty hard to find game. Phantasy Star. I paid $5 for this. Just you find them randomly, and like that's kind of the way I collect, to be honest with you. Like, obviously there are things I want to get, but at the same time, you sort of want to you pick up things based on what you find. And when you're out in the wild and somebody has Master System games that you know to be hard to find, and they're only asking a few dollars, you should just get that stuff, because if you decide you don't want it, I'm sure you could make a trade. Like if I said tomorrow I don't want to collect for Master System, I don't care about it, I could trade Phantasy Star and get something I want. I mean, it's not that hard of a game to find a suitor for, I don't think. We have some Saturn stuff up here. Again, a modest Saturn collection. These I just recently got. A local guy was getting rid of his Saturn collection, and I spent a lot, but not what it usually goes for on eBay, so I was happy. You know, I stretched myself a little bit financially for it, but you know, sometimes when a good deal's there, you gotta just make the budget work. So, here's some Sega CD games. Again, I made custom cases for this. You know, the chances of me finding Shining Force CD on Sega CD, the box and manual, is probably pretty slim for what I'm willing to pay for it. So, I made a custom case and art for it. I think it looks pretty cool. Let's see if we can get around here. Yeah, I just don't want to disturb the shelf, and I almost did. Yeah, so that looks pretty neat, I think. I also like with the Road Avenger, which I had loose, the art for this. I don't even think this is a hard to find game, but I just like this art, so I wanted to print it. So, That's a Nuclear Throne. I got it at PAX East. It was like when they were selling like the physical versions of some of these digital games on PC with extras, and they signed it for me, so that was kind of cool. I got some long box PS1 games. I've been picking up more of these recently, just pretty much anything that I don't have if I can get a decent deal on it, because I just think they're super cool cases, and I realize not all these games are that great, although NBA Jam TE, still amazing. What else do we have here? Not Ballerina to Shinden, that's a shitty game. Raiden Project, that one I found actually twice, complete in box. Both times very inexpensively, and I traded one of them. Street Fighter Alpha, this is interesting story behind this one. This one's in really great shape. The person threw it on eBay, and they're like, I don't know if it works or not, buyer beware. And I look at the pictures, and the pictures all look fine, and everything looks polished, and I'm like, so are you, like, they're like warning me, don't buy this, and it was like $5. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna take the risk, and whatever. I said, it looks okay to me. And so I got it, and it worked perfectly because it's in fine shape. So that was really weird. Theme Park, I got that recently. That's pretty cool. Twisted Metal. I find this, for some reason, this is another one I found like 3 or 4 times, the big long box, but every time I find somebody to take it off me. So I keep picking it up. I don't really like wrestling games, but this is actually kind of neat with the animations and stuff like that. XCOM. I don't know if this is a good version, but I love the game in general. Sega CD stuff. This is actually a pretty decent collection. These two, Lunar 1 and 2, two of my favorite games of all time. I have the PS1 counterparts I'll show you in a minute. But those two complete in box. I mean, I think we found Lunar 1 at a store, me and a buddy of mine, and then Lunar 2 I know I got online on eBay, I think. I did like a buy now offer. This game, Panic, this guy was just selling a big box of random. This is kind of a hard to find game too. This guy, local guy, was selling a bunch of just games. It was just like this big box of random game stuff, and it was like $50. And one of the things in it was my complete box Genesis, which is completely obscured right now. But I was just like a bunch of random games, and all I knew was that it was a lot of stuff, and it wasn't that much money. And so I just said, why the hell not? I'll go for it, and Panic was in it. So, among other good things. We're not going to go too far into this, I don't think, but for a while I was going for a complete loose NES collection. I still kind of am, but I really am not unwilling to pay a lot for things like Little Samson or the Escape from Dinosaur Peak Flintstones or Jetsons. I just don't want to pay the retail price. If I get a good deal on them, maybe. But I still have some pretty hard to find games on the NES. We got Jackie Chan. All sorts of stuff. We'll just scroll through a little bit. Some of this could probably get a little bit more organized. Bomberman 2, this is a pretty hard to find game, and this is in really nice shape. Local collector again. Like it was expensive, but the guy gave me such a good deal. I was willing to flex for it. Part of my idea is too is like if I get a good deal on games, then I can decide, later to get rid of it, and I don't really lose out too much but I have to get a good deal. So right up here we have Mighty Final Fight. I paid, I want to say like 25 cents for this back in the day. The reason I have such a big NES collection, when I was a kid and I started collecting in the 90s, as a teenager, these were just super plentiful. I mean, people were getting rid of their NES stuff like crazy, and you could just go to a store and everything was a fraction of what it was today at retail. And even then, like, you're going to find deals. Like, if you went to the flea market, you'd pay 25 cents an NES cartridge. I mean, or 50 cents or whatever. It was basically free. So if you would go to the flea market, if you were there and you had a little cash, I mean, you could come home with a big bag of games, much to my parents' delight. that would come home with all this shit. To them, it was just, again, it was like, oh, here's another hard to find one. This is Rescue Rangers 2. A buddy of mine has this complete in box, which is really impressive from as a kid. Anyway, you just come home with a big bag of games, and there's Fire and Ice with the manual. That's another hard to find one. So that's the NES collection. Just some random cases there. Up here we have a lime green N64. I have a lot of N64s, but since that's the fantastic one, I put it up there. Here's a PS1 with the screen. This is super cool. I really love this thing. I spent like, I want to say like 20 or 30 bucks, and I got it at the flea market, some flea market just randomly in Anne Arundel County, and it was the lady had it on us with a Sega Games, and she just had the price, and she's just like, oh, it's working fine, it's great, and it's in pristine condition. I mean, everything is great on it, and I was like, okay, here you go. I couldn't pull the money out fast enough, and the games were good too, and it's just a super terrific thing. Really amazing for a piece of equipment that old, how functional it is. I think it was pretty expensive back in the day for what it was, though, especially late run. Here's N64 collection. I don't have any of the truly rare games. I don't have like Clay Fighters 63 and a third or anything like that, but I got a few hard to find games. Some of these you may notice they were pulled off. They're either complete in box or in those custom cases. Any particular note? Oh, StarCraft 64 is a hard to find one. These labels, by the way, if you're not familiar with them, these are the custom labels you can buy off eBay. I would highly recommend that if you like to collect for N64. I paid like 12 bucks shipped, and they sent me these sheets of all of the labels for every game. And so I think that's great if you like putting them on the shelf, which I do. Here's SNES. Again, we've got some pretty decent stuff. Shout outs to my buddy Matt for sending me Biker Mice from Mars, or bringing me Biker Mice from Mars back from his bar in Japan. He brought home a bunch of games that off this list that he's like, I gotta get rid of some of these games. Do you want them? And he brought them to me, which was super generous and awesome of him. So nothing, I think, too rare, loose like this. I think a lot of them go in those cases. Down here, it's sort of difficult to display them, but these are Super Famicom games. I mean, I have some good Super Famicom games. There's Mega Man X2, which is really nice. But you can't really display them. I have the Parodius games. I don't think I have anything too rare on Super Famicom. Up here, real quick, not really very displayed very well, my modest Game Gear collection. We also have Game Boy Advance. These are kind of hard to display well and keep organized. But I have some pretty decent Game Boy Advance games loose. I don't go that expensive on them. The most expensive games I have on Game Boy Advance are probably like 50 bucks. And then a ton of Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games. So we can see up here, I'm going to move these. These are just custom cases that I couldn't really use. But just assorted, I don't really want to put them in alphabetical order. Game Boy Color games. Right up here, this is a Game Boy Advance. You might notice this is not stock. This is this has a backlight put in it and a custom case, and these are really cool. I would really recommend this because when you put a backlight in this original form factor, the system is so playable. I played through Metroid this just a couple months ago on that system, and it was great. Highly recommended. You can see I have an EverDrive here. I have EverDrives for a lot of these systems. For the really rare stuff, I'd rather just have that. But I like collecting games, so I buy games too. GameCube. My GameCube collection's pretty good these days. I've found a lot over the past couple years out in the wild. A lot of collections that you'd buy for like 50 bucks, 100 bucks, and you'd end up with some pretty hard to find things. We'll zoom in a little bit. I have Twilight Princess GameCube. Downstairs, I'm playing it. I have Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. What else? Luigi's Mansion, not that hard to find. All the Mario Party games. Metal Gear Twin Snakes. I'd like to play that to completion. I've never done that before. I played Metal Gear, but not that version to completion. Super Smash Bros. Melee, the most overpriced game of all time. It's super not rare, and yet you can buy it. It's always $50, but I think they have 8 million copies or something of it. It's ridiculous. Skies of Arcadia Legends. One lady I bought some games from, a nice older lady. I helped her with her computer stuff, and she says, I found more games. Can I send them to you in the mail? I just want to send them to you since you helped me with my computer. I'm like, sure. You don't have to. And she's like, no, I'd like to. And this was one of the things she sent me, which was amazing. And of course, I thanked her a lot. I said, thank you so much. But I think she was happy that I helped her with her computer stuff, so it's fair enough. But I mean, another reason to try and be a good person and try and talk to, be nice to people, do nice things for people, because sometimes that comes back around. It's worth doing for the sake of doing, but also, sometimes you never know. When you think of people, sometimes they think of you. Here's some loose GameCube games. I don't think there's anything too special there, but I'm not going to deal with that right now. It's PS3 stuff, a few cool things. 3D Game Heroes. If you like old school games and games that make fun of themselves and stuff, play that game. Demon Souls, great game. All the Dark Souls games, amazing. A couple import games. This is Initial D. I found this weirdly at a record store in Frederick, Maryland. So it's fun, actually. JoJo, more JoJo. This game is actually pretty fun. Killer is Dead. There's some really great PS3 games. Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection, really a great package. Nier, Persona 4, Ultimax, 13.2 Collector's Edition. 13 sucks, but 13.2 is pretty awesome. Under Feet, Yakuza, really love Yakuza. All right, moving on. We're almost through the room. You can see just the Xenoblade Chronicles Special Edition, some Happy Meal toys. These are just some loose DS things. I have a lot of PS1 games. Ooh, a lot of glare there. Well, we'll try and do this with a minimal amount of glare. Sorry. Alundra, Castlevania Chronicles, a lot of rare PS1 RPGs. The reason I have a lot of them, Diablo, is I've had these as a kid. I kept my PS1 RPGs, these Lunar games I bought when they came out, and I kept them. So that's why I have them. You might notice I also have JoJo on the PlayStation, as well as the Dreamcast. Even though this is definitely inferior to the Dreamcast version, I have both because I'm a crazy person. Final Fantasy, everything on the PlayStation. Metal Gear Solid, Mega Man 8. You might notice Mega Man X4 isn't on here, even though it's a great game. I have it, but it's not working, so I pulled it off the shelf. Pocket Fighter is a neat little game. Oh, Medieval 2, I found that at the flea market. That was another great little cheap find. Suikoden and Suikoden 2 right there. Suikoden 2, a game I got when it came out, and it was actually got some mixed reviews at the time. And really, I should clean up this case. I don't need that sticker residue on here, but the game itself and the art's in really good shape. Amazing game. Really recommend it. If you have like a PS3, you can get it on PlayStation Network, I think, for like $6. I don't even know. But it's totally worth it. Great RPGs. Xenogears, Wild Arms 2. I have Wild Arms 1 loose. I have a few PS1 games, some decent ones loose in a binder. And I do tend to go back and complete these games sometimes. Like, every so often you will find the case. So, like, again, if someone offers you a loose disc game and it's hard to find and the price is right, I say go for it. Or same if you find, like, really cheap, like, if you find that manual for a hard-to-find game or a case for a hard-to-find game, pick it up. Because you never know who you might be able to swap it with. DS games, I love collecting for DS. I think it's getting more expensive and harder to do, but there are some amazing games on the system, and it's fun to collect for. It's just like a fun little system, I think. And I love the cases and everything about it. Got the Castlevania games, 999, amazing. All the Zero Escape games, I love them. I can't get this off the shelf. Really adore this game. I can't recommend enough. Again, it's not like Danganronpa. I don't want to talk too much about it because I worry I spoil. Chrono Trigger on the DS, probably the best version of the game. Contra 4. That Drone Tactics I found locally recently. I think it's not that great, but it's pretty hard to find. So the lady was just selling it on Facebook. Here's some Pokemon games. Nostalgia, some weird RPGs, Nano Stray 1 and 2, Metal Slug 7 with a little slipcover. This looks super cool. So, I love the Slug games. I love SNK, Neo Geo in general. More on that later. Zelda, Starfy, Ys. I can hear my cat trying to get in the room. Not right now. Ghost Trick, awesome game. Elf Bowling, that was a super cheap game to find, but apparently is not easy to find, so I picked it up. Layton, Radiant Historia. This is cool. If you've ever seen Game Center CX, perhaps on YouTube or Twitch, this is the game that they made, and it's like, you can see it's Areno. So anyway, that's kind of cool. Rhythm Heaven, SimCities, Suikoden and Tier Crease, which I haven't even played. Some complete box Game Boy games. Up here, we've got 3DS games, another system that is pretty good to collect for. And I have some pretty awesome games on the 3DS. I really love the system. And I'm getting to the point where I'm not sure what else I actually want for it. So if you see something that is missing from my 3DS collection that I should get, feel free to hit me up, because I'm not even sure what I want. I go to the store and I look for things for 3DS, and I don't really find anything anymore that I want. PSP, this is something that I've been actively collecting for, and I find cool games all the time. Third Birthday, that I found recently. That's not Persona. What's it called? Parasite Eve, like 3 technically. Castlevania Chronicles, that has Dracula X on it if you ever want to play that game for not an expensive amount of money. Lunar, I'm kind of a Lunar nut. So I have the regular version of Lunar on PSP and Lunar, the special edition, because I wanted it. Persona 1, that was a great find. Local guy on OfferUp wanted $5, and I said, I'll see you there, buddy, because I'll take that. I don't know why it's all the way over here. It's not in order, but whatever. Persona 3 Portable I found at Second and Charles for like $20. I couldn't believe it. Phantasy Star Portable, I don't know if it's good or not. Power Stone Collection, some of the Mega Man games, they're kind of neat. So my PSP collection's kind of nice, but I'd like to grow it a little bit. So if you got games that you think I should get on PSP, hit me up. Famicom games, I wish these displayed better, but they don't, and I don't read Japanese. Let's see if I can actually find something cool to show you. Oh, here it is. I should just keep it like this. That's Akumajo Dracula Densetsu, I think, with Castlevania 3, and it's got another custom chip in it, so it has a better soundtrack than the regular game. So really fun, great version, best version of the game. You can emulate it and give it a shot. I would highly recommend it. I'm gonna have a hard time getting a camera angle here, but some complete in box stuff. Custom Game Boy Advance cases for some of my more coveted games, at least by me, the ones I like the best. Even my Mother 3 Repro, that's a special game, even though it's a repro. Fire Emblem, Castlevania, Metroid, and some PSP games. Danganronpa's down there, Persona 4 Golden. I'd like to get more Vita games in the future, but they're going to get harder to find. I should probably start hunting for them now. All right, wrapping up, the only other thing I'm going to show off, just a brief view of the consoles. Here's a Neo Geo 2-slot consoleized board. So this plays Neo Geo cartridges. I'm not going to be able to show them off in this video, but it's like a consoleized version of an arcade board, so you can play it like a home console, which is a lot cheaper. Here's an SNES Junior, which I got modified to do RGB. Just a regular Model 2 Genesis, which I technically need for certain RGB stuff. No SSC. Again, this all needs to be cleaned up. A core graphics here, and hooked up to it, you might be able to notice in the back, that's a Super SD System 3. So that's like a flash card and an RGB thing, so I can play super expensive TurboGrafx games that I will never buy. This thing's kind of... Anyway, this is the PC Engine Duo RX Japanese TurboGrafx CD. It's also modified to do RGB and has a little switch so you can do different region games. A Retron, which I barely use anymore, but kind of neat to have. PS2, awesome system. In that little cabinet, it's an Xbox 360. We don't need to show that off. Everyone's seen those. There's another top loader NES down there, a Sega Saturn, a OG Xbox, and a Wii. All of those systems, the Xbox, the Wii, the PS2, maybe something else. Oh, the Neo Geo, all go into a component switcher in the back that go to the TV so I can run them component. That's why they're set up this way. Kind of makes the wires a little nuts, but I want to get good output, and I can deal with a little clutter. I know that's not the most aesthetic thing, but I want to get the best output out of these systems while I can. I'm going to redo this whole thing. I redid the downstairs this year. I'll probably redo this thing this year. I'll go to IKEA or something, or I don't know. Maybe I'll get something built that'll really house this stuff well. We'll also show off my RGB monitor. This is a Sony PVM I got locally, 20 inches. It is really cool. I'm just starting to learn how this thing works, but really cool. I use it to play these things: PS1, Dreamcast, N64, Genesis, and that little NES over there. That's AV modded with an EverDrive in it. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I have other things I could show off, but I'm not going to go too nuts with it. There's maybe we'll do separate videos on the Neo Geo stuff, maybe on my more modern systems downstairs. I have a Nintendo Power collection I could show off, or other interesting things. Maybe we'll do deeper dives or whatever. But thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this visit to my game room. And any comments or anything, feel free to reach out. I'll put my contact info in the description, and you can check me out on Twitch too, and maybe watch me play some games. So thanks, and have a good night. Bye.